Jolly well. Welcome back, everybody, to the Square the Circle Music channel. It's me, your old pal Mage. That's right, here in Western Oregon, we like to talk about collecting records, spinning, appreciating music, all things circle and square, all things fun under the sun. Hope you guys are having a wonderful summer. I sure am. We're going to talk about some specific things tonight, boys and girls. As you can probably see, what's on the blackboard behind me, we're going to talk about the English legendary rock group, Radiohead. How to classify Radiohead? Some people call them progressive. I guess you could say they're progressive to a certain degree. They certainly harbor a lot of those kind of feelings and aspects and things, tropes that all of us prog nuts love, but then all of you guys who also love your kind of like discotheque, trance, electronica, kind of fun, quirky, artistic sounds and concepts and ideas, all can be really just, Radiohead is so multifaceted and versatile and they're just fucking legends on a global stage. I mean, there's few bands that you could really say on a global scale that are as successful and as popular as they are now in the world. You have your U2 and you have your AC/DC, and you know what I mean? There's only a real handful, and these guys have really, like I said, made legends of themselves in 30 years time. So pretty cool. A lot of their albums turning 20, 25, 30 years old. Now it's time to do a ranking video. They have 9 studio albums, and so I'm gonna rank them shitzes tonight for you guys. So I hope you can just sit back, relax, grab a cold one, whatever you like, and we're gonna get to it. I'm gonna rank these shitzes. Radiohead's studio albums, there's 9 of them. Let's start with number 9. Nothing really negative I could ever say about this album because it's fantastic. It just so happens to be my least favorite, and some could say it's just kind of their weakest album, I guess you could say, simply because it's their first album they ever gave us, Pablo Honey from 1993. That's my number 9. I still adore it. It has that wonderful formative sound of, what they were. There's some really great guitar. It's guitar rock. It's fantastic guitar rock. And, they weren't inspired by the same stuff that the 90s guys were here, in America, in the, the Pacific Northwest, Seattle sound that everyone was cranking out in 1993. I'm sure they were inspired by bits and pieces of it, but their stuff was much more kind of like, punk influenced, UK punk influenced, obviously. But, they also loved some kind of like, Western stuff. I've heard interviews by Tom York that he really latched onto a lot of like kind of folk, folky artists and stuff in America. But I love the song Creep. Of course, we all do. The song Anyone Can Play the Guitar. That's a fantastic song as well. Yeah, just a really fantastic freshman album, but in my opinion, it's just kind of like number 9. Moving up the list, number 8 on my list of ranking their albums. I'm gonna say this was a tough one. This was kind of like last minute. I was kind of like shuffling things around still, and I gave most of these a last minute listen in the last few days. I've been working up this ranking list for at least probably 5 months, and just kind of like really pouring over it, just because, like I said, these guys are legends, and they happen to be they're definitely in my top 6, 7 artists of all time. It really, they deserve to have some thought put into this, and so I did my very best, guys. My number 8 is A Moon-Shaped Pool from 2016, right? I made notes here because I'm terrible about certain factoids, so I want to make sure that I'm getting it all straight here. Yeah, A Moon-Shaped Pool from 2016. I really liked it a lot when I first bought it. Over time, it kind of like didn't grow sour or anything. It's just kind of like, I don't know. It's just not one of my favorites. It's really beautiful. It's lush, cinematic. I love that about Radiohead, and especially with this album, they really kind of take that to a whole new level. and it being, like I said, really just open, spatial, cinematic, just kind of really ethereal. Pardon me. And to a certain degree, I love that about Radiohead, but this album seems a bit awash with that, you know what I mean? And so it just didn't really have a lot of like clicks or, hooks or any kind of like great melody that they're also known for, and great just kind of like rock and roll sensibility that even still in their most obscure wild moments, they still kind of like interject, kind of basic ass meat and potato rock and roll sometimes, almost all the time. Anyway, so yeah, Moonshaped Pool's still badass, like I said. It just kind of really reeks of, a lot of Tom York's solo career, just that, stuff he's doing on his own personal time. It is kind of like leaching over into what Radiohead is, which is not that big of a deal. It's definitely, Tom York's the front man, always has been. So anyway, Moonshaped Pool's badass. The few selections that I just always like to highlight some of my favorite songs from it. The Desert Island Disc song is fantastic. Again, I like that real kind of like, Eno-esque, lush atmospheric kind of, these tracks. This album is just loaded with those. Glass Eyes, these are all like back to back. Glass Eyes, and then, or the Daydreaming song is like the second track on the album. But yeah, I love those songs. Daydreaming especially, fantastic song. So that's my number 8. Moving on up, number 7. This is the one I kept flopping around. This might surprise some of you folks, because most people I've ever talked to, this is generally everyone's least favorite album of theirs, and it gets a lot of hate. My number 7 is The King of Limbs. And this one was like, I surprised myself. I've oft just kind of like said to my friends, kind of just like, I don't really dig King of Limbs very much. Never really got into it. And recently I've really been diving deep into it. And if you crank that fucking album up loud and really let it envelop you, I can see how people might get a little bit, it might agitate people, and it might be just like abrasive, and a lot of people just don't fucking like that album for some reason. If you get more intimate than you're used to with it and really like put it in your headphones and kind of crank it up a little bit, or put it on in your car and turn the volume up and let that album swallow you, it will. It'll absolutely engulf you and swallow you whole. And by the time the first 2 tracks are over, that are pretty, like I said, kind of like glitchy and abrasive, they really take their their love for kind of like trance, krautrock, discotheque music, stuff like that. They really take, all of that love, Ed O'Brien and Tom York and all of their dorky shit, but it's just like all of those sporadic rhythms, they all actually lock up and do like this kind of like cyclical dance. If you have it in stereophonic and it's just kind of like all around you, it's pretty badass. But even those first, once you kind of like, you hit the bottom of the rabbit hole, you know what I mean? And you're in Neverland, that's what this album is like. It's like a very intense psychedelic experience. And then it just like, after those first 2 tracks, if you can get through that without losing your mind, you're opened up to a really exotic and beautiful psychedelic world. And the rest of The King of Limbs is absolutely fan-fucking-tastic. It's a great, great album. Incredibly underrated. So that's my number 7. Oh, I love the Morning Mr. Magpie song. That's fantastic. Codex is an absolutely wonderful track. Wonderful track. So, yeah, 2011, King of Limbs. That's my number 7. All right, boys and girls. Sorry I'm babbling a lot, but these albums are so, they're so deep. They're just deep. And I like to, just kind of reflect and kind of give you guys a real honest opinion on my thoughts and feelings about it, and like what it makes me feel, rather than just kind of coming across as kind of just like a reviewer. I'm not reviewing shit here. I'm just like, I'm giving it to you straight of how I feel their albums from, bottom to top. So I'll just keep moving on here. Number 6, in my opinion, on my list is 2007, In Rainbows. Been talking about that album a lot recently because it's, it brings back memories for me. It was an album that I was spinning a lot when I met my ex-wife. And so, it had some really kind of like touchy-feely, sensitive vibes to it for a long time. I had a hard time listening to it for quite a few years. I've recently fallen back in love with it, and I'm enjoying it again, almost like for the first time, because I could hardly listen to it for a decade. It's magnificent. So that's my number 6. I love the song Nude. Fantastic. You know, all the first like 5 tracks on that album are fucking super intensely awesome. The Weird Fishes song is magnificent, and of course All I Need. Yeah, like I said, jaw-dropping, incredible album. Number 6, In Rainbows. Okay, number 5. Here we are, guys. Radiohead's top 5 albums. My top 5, or my number 5, is Kid A from 2000. A lot of people have Kid A way, way, way up on theirs. Mine's just kind of like at that medium spot. I love everything about it, and this is where they really, you know, started taking their experimental. I mean, yeah, OK Computer was incredibly experimental, but still had so many just kind of like classic rock, you know, kind of elements to it. Just kind of like the basic beats of you know, classic rock in a sense, and then yeah, Kid A in 2000 was just kind of like jumping off the deep end. Out into space, you know, cut the cord and let yourself just kind of float out into space. And, you know, I'm like in 2000, I'm 20 years old, you know, and I dropped out of college, and I'm like watching all my friends take up heroin, and it's just like, man, what a trip, what an incredible album, and what a wonderful time and place in the world. The year 2000, it was still, man, it was even a different world. Even 22 years ago, totally different world. But yeah, Kid A was a huge part of that for me. My favorite tracks, Everything in Its Right Place. These were really just kind of like really emotionally, like cyclical kind of like enveloping tunes, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, really psychedelic and crazy. Everything in Its Right Place. What else was some of my favorite? Oh yeah, How to Disappear Completely, that song. Really introspective and crazy. I wasn't used to this when I was 20 years old. I mean, I had been listening to smart music, but this was just like really, like I said, introspective and emotional, and just really like, I use the word cyclical, if you can understand what I'm kind of getting at. Like, you just, even through the course of a song, like you feel like you just kind of like are in a fucking whirlwind, and you start one place and you go through this intense emotional state, and then you end up right back where you started. That's a lot of how I feel when I listen to like this era of Radiohead. OK Computer through, you know, basically Hail to the Thief. But yeah, pretty intense. Love that shit. My number 4, guys. Number 4. Radiohead's greatest albums is The Bends from 1995. Perfect album, basically. You know, like I said, more in kind of that era of like the early 90s, formative sound. They were really kind of like, still not really getting that experimental, but they were, you know, definitely getting smarter. Their rock was getting more savvy. It was just a huge step up from Pablo Honey. And so I was really excited when I was 15 years old and I heard this album. I was like, this is way fucking better than what because I just, even when I was 15 or 13, 14, I didn't latch on to Pablo Honey, and I didn't really think Radiohead was going to be anything special until I heard The Bends for the first time. And yeah, shit fucking knocked my socks off. Absolutely knocked my socks off. Every song on that album is the shit. Every single one of them. So I especially love the title track. The Bends is awesome. That's like one of my like karaoke go-tos when I go karaoke and shit. I love singing The Bends. Of course, ending the album with Street Spirit, you know, the Fade Out song. One of the first like Radiohead songs I ever learned how to play on the guitar. My sister and I like we'll sing that as a duet sometimes. Yeah, great fucking album. Love The Bends. Okay, number 3. Here we go, guys. This was tough. This was really, really, really tough. But my number 3 is OK Computer. From 97, a lot of people might, you know, think that that's kind of crazy. You know, that's been kind of deemed as like one of the greatest rock records ever created in the history of rock music. So yeah, it's my number 3. I was like dead set in adulthood, basically like young adulthood, nearly graduated high school when that came out. Had been listening to a lot of stuff. I felt I knew what was good at that point in time, full of myself, and I loved it. Ergo, I listened to it to death. It has that kind of like Dark Side of the Moon type of candle that a lot of you dudes from the boomer generation, you totally get it, or even, you know, Generation Xers as well. You get it. You know, I can only listen to Dark Side of the Moon once maybe once a year now. You know, OK Computer's the same way. It's just like I fucking listen to that so goddamn much. It's still fantastic, and I'll definitely drop it. I'll needle drop it a lot, but dude, I mean, I just like every other 17, 18-year-old kid at the time, you know, we worshipped that. Everyone worshipped that album. So anyway, yeah, that's my number 3. I love the whole thing. Again, it's a perfect album, basically. Exit Music for a Film is one of my very favorite songs. I love the last 2 tracks of that album so much. The Tourist is probably my favorite track from that album. Great way to end the album. It's so, you know, it's just so sardonic and sweet, the way it kind of just pans out, and then you just hear like the ding at the end, like the hanging up of a phone, you know, or whatever. I love that kind of shit. The sound effects shit, like Yes used to do that kind of shit, all kinds of stuff. But yeah, great album, guys. Here we go. Top 2, my number 2. My number 2 is Hail to the Thief. 2003. Talked about this album a lot. It's incredibly underrated. Most people don't give it its due. It's fucking magnificent. So many great tracks. Huge album. Very bulky album. Incredibly artistic. Still kind of going back to their roots of rock, I guess you could say, in a sense, but still wildly experimental, and lots of cool electronic moments, and lots of great, you know, thematic and cinematic moments, and just it's chock full of everything. It's just the cornucopia of Radiohead, all condensed, you know, into that album. Is just so magnificent. The Sail to the Moon song, oh my god, yeah, There, the song There. Just 'cause you feel it doesn't mean it's there. Oh man, Go to Sleep is a fantastic song. For the rag and bone man, yeah, over my dead. Fucking great song, dude. All right, well, you guys know my number 1. My number 1 is Amnesiac. That album has been through thick and thin with me personally. I love that era, and it's everything that Kid A wasn't. I mean, not that I don't like Kid A, of course I love Kid A, but it had all those little flavors and experimental out there moments that like Kid A wanted to do, but then they were like, no, let's just focus on these really great groove oriented pieces and lyrically oriented pieces. And Amnesiac was just so much more of an art piece and so much more theatrical, and just, oh fuck, the Pyramid Song and just all of it is just magnificent. I love the horn piece at the end, you know, of course I'd like to stay and chew the fat. The Dirty, what is it, Dirty Dozen brass band plays on that. Oh man, yeah, that album's an absolute masterpiece. So that's my number 1, guys. 2001, right? Yeah. I got that album when I was on tour doing drum corps with the Denver Blue Knights, playing snare drum. And that's when that album was released. So I got it that summer while I was touring America on a bus, you know. So that was like my, you know, touring America, staring out the window of a bus for like 3 months straight. Pretty awesome soundtrack. So yeah, Radiohead's the ever-loving shit. Man, I'm gonna have to like rank my top 10 bands of all time one of these days. So Radiohead, boy, they're way up there. Way up there. Thanks for hanging out with me tonight, guys. I know you love Radiohead just as much as I do, so let's talk about it. Get down, get dirty, peace in the crease, keep them clean. Peace be with you, motherfuckers. Good night.